they're so cute and I don't want my kids to grow up. And Carson talked yesterday about the dread that I have of like kids bullying. And I don't even think it was really bullying. I think there were just some fourth graders that were being jerks, but he plays soccer outside and I guess like he kicked the ball out or was out on him. So he was going to get it to like give to the other team. And these fourth graders like came over and yelled at him and were like, you kicked it out. It's out on you. It's our ball, and like ripped the ball away from him. So I told him, I was like, sometimes people are jerks and sometimes you just let it go the first time. And if it happens again, then you do something about it.
Mhm.
And Nick was like, and when you punch people, you punch them right here. And I was like, you do not punch people. I was like, never start a fight, but if someone hits you, you can hit back. That is what I told him. I was like, you never are the one to start a fight. And Nick's like, and this is where you hit them. And he's like showing them on the jaw. And I was like, do not teach him this. He's like, he needs to know if he gets in a fight where you hit people. And I'm like, I can't.
I think it's such a fine line because Nick is not the only dad that says those things.
I'm sure.
Art is not the only dad that says those things, right? He does teach him, especially from jujitsu and the discipline there, that you try to resolve it without physical, and also to get an adult and an authority figure, because he's been bullied, like even at the indoor play places. Some kid was like shoving him, and then he wanted Marcus to participate in them ganging up on some other kid, and he said no, like I'm not going to do that. And I was like, I'm so proud of you, and also let's find the worker who's here so that they can discuss with the parents, because I'm not about to get involved with parents. It's not going to be good if I have to get involved with parents. That actually happened at a friend's house a few weeks ago, and I was like, all right, we're going to just diffuse the situation, because like I don't really know these parents that well. But he got smacked in the face, like girl walled back, smacked him across the face. And I was up there and I was like, okay, all of you keep your hands to yourselves, just speaking generally to the group. And I'm like, Marcus, we're going to disengage. We're going to go down here and we're going to find something else to do, because you just don't know, right? Like I didn't want it to turn into like a big argument, and like you don't know how the other people parent. And our friends that own the house, I mean, we had a discussion about it later, and he's like, if that does happen again, like I want you to say something. And like also we will say something, because they have said stuff before. I'm like, why do you let your kids continue to hang out with kids like this? I don't know.
I know we're very selective about who Carson hangs out with and the parents, because we want, you know, like you spend a lot of time typically with the kids' parents that your kids are friends with over time and play sports with and stuff like that. And so I want to be around people that I want to be around. And it's, anyways, I tried to explain to him, and it's so hard because like he's 7. So like explaining when to do something about it, when not, like what is okay to do, what is right to do. And he's like, I'm going to tell the assistant principal tomorrow. I was like, no, you are not. If they do something again, that's when you can bring something up. Like first time you give it a pass. Who knows? Maybe they were having a rough day. Maybe they were, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
If it happens more than once, you do something about it. And so it's just like, it's so hard because you want to protect your kid at all costs. And I go full blown mama bear with my kids when other kids are being a-holes. And it's just hard. It's hard to help them grow up and be good people and make good decisions.
Yeah.
And being a parent's hard.
You know, I think that from a competitive spirit, Marcus, the only feedback he got for his parent-teacher conference, he's done very, very well. And I was so happy to hear, like, he's doing certain things through 3rd grade level, and he's reading so much better. Because, like, honestly, he doesn't love doing it at home. And so we just stopped fighting about it. And actually, the teacher was like, let us just handle it here. And now that he's bringing it up, it's more fun to do it. But I said, you know, any like feedback, things that we need to work on at home, or just what are you observing from a social standpoint? And she's like, the biggest thing that he needs to understand and learn is that not everything is a competition. Like if they are playing soccer at school, that's different than him playing his travel team with his coaches and his teammates and all this. I was like, yeah, you know, that's a fine line. It's kind of hard because you just are competitive. You know what I mean? Like he just wants to win, and I'm not ever going to fault him for that. So we just didn't even have the conversation, because keep playing like you want to win everything. I want you to win everything.
Another thing I tried to explain to Carson is he's talking about like trash talk. And I'm like, you don't trash talk. You talk with your actions. And guess what? When you are just better than everyone else, they don't even want to trash talk because they have nothing to go off of because you beat them at everything. So be the best at things. That is what I taught him yesterday.
Yep.
And speaking of competitiveness, last night it was nice out. So Nick came home a little early so we could play catch outside with Carson. And he came in and we were sitting on the couch hanging out. And Nick was like, Carson's getting really good at throwing. Like he's getting like the whole step into the throw and he's like launching it. I guarantee he can throw farther than you. And I was like, that first of all, not saying much. I suck at throwing a baseball. It is the one sport I cannot figure out. And second, he's like, we should do a contest. And I'm like, why? What is this going to bring other than shame to me and making fun of mom that her 7-year-old son can throw farther than her? Good. I hope he throws farther than me. And he's like, well, you can still throw farther than Taylor. And I was like, I feel like this is getting nowhere productive right now. Mm-hmm. And you just want to make fun of me and how bad I am at throwing things. So thank you for that. Moving on.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Yeah. They were playing soccer outside and I came home and I had taken Ethan to the park and whatever. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to make dinner. And Ethan's just now down into his diaper because you know how feeding time is. It's just stuff everywhere. He's so stinking cute. This morning, I got these little spoon, like chicken and veggie things from Target. He was pointing at the pickles, first of all. Okay, you can have a pickle, no problem. He loves pickles, so he's eating that. Then Marcus went to the freezer for something. He got his little spoon. He's carrying it around. Like, okay, this is what you want to have for breakfast. But last night, he also sees his yogurt pouches. Boy knows what he wants. Okay, I'm going to sit you back in the chair. And then it's like a game because he loves to feel everything. So he dumped it all out all over. I was like, oh my goodness.
The worst. The worst. Always the worst. It would end up all over their face. Even now, my kids are somewhat grown and cannot eat without it just ending up all over the mouth, all over the face. I'm like, you had a spoon. How does it get all the way over by your eye? Like,
yeah.
But
so yeah, I go outside and Marcus doesn't have a shirt on. Ethan's just walking around in the grass in a diaper. I'm like, this is just fantastic. I'm like, hey, we're out here grounding. We're getting, our circadian rhythm, which thank God I actually appreciate the time change this go around because both boys have slept the last 2 mornings till 7 and Marcus, is not up stomping around the house at 5:30. So I'm going to take that win anytime. And Ethan's sleeping better again. So I'm like, oh, thank you for the time change. All right. We got to get into it today. So we're going to be talking about brain fog and what you can do about it, because I think a lot of people go through these phases where they feel really just like burnt out. They can't think clearly. Their energy is low. And a lot of times, honestly, we'll see this post-viral sickness. So if somebody's had, we've had so much in our area. I don't know what you all are seeing in your area, but strep, norovirus, influenza A and B. Actually, when we got home from Cabo, they canceled school because 64% of the school was sick that week.
Like, insane.
Multiple days. I've had a handful of clients and friends with norovirus, like bad stomach bug, horrible diarrhea, pooping their pants, like not great. And after that really takes a toll on your body. So your body is trying to get back those reserves. I'm like, you got to be gentle with your nutrition, right? Low fiber, really soft, bland foods, that brat diet. But you got to remember that you've just gone through a phase where you're nutrient depleted, you're mineral depleted, right?
Yes.
You're probably dehydrated on top of all of that. And so just rebuilding some of those reserves and getting yourself back to a place that you feel good, just know that it's normal and it just takes a little bit of time to level out. So that can impact your brain, obviously, because your brain needs nutrients, lots of fat. Your brain runs on fat. And so when we think about brain fog in general, and this is like a kind of like a bucket term, right? Because you're kind of cloudy, you can't really think, maybe short-term memory loss. This is a signal that the brain doesn't have what it needs to produce energy efficiently. Because this might shock you if you've never heard these stats before. The brain uses 20% of your daily energy expenditure. On top of that, your liver is 20 to 30% of your basal metabolic rate. And we wonder why so many people can't lose weight with fatty liver, but that's a different topic for a different day. Anyways, your brain, it needs a lot of this fat, and it's 2% of your body weight in total. So anything that affects your oxygen delivery, blood sugar stability, your inflammation, your mitochondrial function, can show up as this foggy thinking and fatigue. And then again, if you compile that with gut on fire, brain on fire, toxins recirculating, you're not pooping every day, you're not adequately hydrated with minerals and urinating all of these things out, right? The solution to pollution is dilution. This is going to show up as poor thinking, right? Poor focus, word finding issues. What was that word? Why did I come into this room? You feel mentally drained. You're just overall exhausted. And a lot of times we'll see this show up as afternoon crashes as well. And that is going to tie into blood sugar. And so when blood sugar is unstable, you've got these highs and lows, right? So glucose rises and then it crashes. I always say that crash at the bottom is going to make you feel like crap. You're going to be craving things. You're moody, you're anxious, you're nervous between meals. So we can see this in the morning time. Let's say maybe you had just coffee on an empty stomach, you didn't have any electrolytes before that, you had maybe a bagel, right? Or a really high carb, sugary breakfast like a donut and a latte, and there's no protein, there's no fat, there's no fiber there to stabilize you, your brain loses that steady supply of fuel. And so remember that your brain relies heavily on glucose, blood sugar, to produce energy from ATP. And therefore, when you're swinging around, this is going to show up cognitively. And I just feel like so many people like to play different blame games, right? It's my hormones, it's aging, it's mom life, it's this or that. But when you really boil everything back down, it's inflammation and blood sugar regulation.
Yeah, I would say biggest, and I actually have a reel coming out about this, like the biggest number one thing, and we talked about this with Sonia on the podcast last week, the number one thing health-wise that needs to be on point for everything else to work is your blood sugar.
Oh.
Like it is the biggest driver of inflammation. It's the biggest driver of dysfunction, and it affects so much. And what a lot of people don't realize is insulin resistance doesn't just go to like your body from the neck down. It is the brain too. And when the brain cells become insulin resistant, that's why Alzheimer's is known as type 3 diabetes. You are unable to use energy properly, not just in the body, and so you're gaining weight, but also in the brain. And in the brain, it shows up as brain fog. It shows up as I can't produce and utilize energy properly, so I can't think. I can't get through a day without being exhausted. And this is that insensitivity at the cell level for glucose, for energy usage. And so I think a lot of people need to realize that this can happen regardless of whether you are overweight or not, regardless of whether you are eating healthy or not. We see this actually more. And I saw a really interesting post the other day that I was like, this hits home. I think level of orthorexia and health obsession of people eliminating foods, eliminating, only eating super, super clean and almost like dysfunctional to an extent with diet has translated into, I think, to an extent, this like threat feeling in the body and this lack of safety in the body, which then leads to histamine intolerance. It leads to overall this stress load that people are discounting. And they're like, well, I eat healthy and I exercise. And it's like, but are you obsessed? Because if you are obsessed, you are creating this state of lack of safety in the body, mentally and emotionally, which then translates into inflammation. It translates into everything that stress causes, whether it's an external stressor or an internal stressor.
Yeah. And on that note, I was telling you that earlier, I was listening to Karan and talking about a single strain probiotic for cognition. And if you think about some of these species in our microbiome, when you cut food out so much and you bring it back in, there's going to be a shift. There's going to be an adjustment period. So this is why we always say when you're reintroducing things, you're going low and slow, one food at a time. Let's say you haven't been on fermented foods for a really long time. Don't drink the entire bottle of kombucha or the entire jar of sauerkraut, right? For St. Patrick's Day. Really introduce like a tablespoon or two at a time. You might have a little bit of a reaction in the gut because everything that you're putting in your body is a chemical reaction, an enzymatic action, and these microbes are feeding and feasting on things. And it's not always a bad thing because when you're reseeding the microbiome, you might have a little bit of a shift for a few days. So recognizing that, and then also recognizing that there are certain species. This one is the Bifidobacterium 1517 or 1715, but it's really, really important for your brain and your cognition. And so it's in those situations, these people that have gone down to 10, 15 foods because, everything makes me bloated. That's not solving the problem. Solving the problem is addressing the underlying issue. Are you low in short chain fatty acids? Do you need to rebuild your microbiome with spore-based probiotics? Do you need to eradicate dysbiosis and bacterial overgrowth, fungal overgrowth, leaky overgrowth? All of those, if you imagine your gut as a garden, right? All of the weeds that are the overgrown bacteria we don't want, and maybe you don't have a lot of flowers, which is the good flora that you do need, that's going to result in a more inflammatory environment, leaky gut. And so this increases inflammatory compounds that impact the gut-brain signaling. So certain gut bacteria produce those lipopolysaccharides that we talk about that trigger inflammation. And so just that single strain probiotic can be really helpful for these situations where people are feeling that cognitive decline. But most importantly, you have to recognize gut on fire, brain on fire. You got to figure out what's going on in the gut terrain, rebalance the terrain, and then you're able to have that diverse diet so that you can keep feeding those bacteria, right? You want fermented foods, fermentable carbohydrates. Like everybody's just like, oh, I'll just do low FODMAP. I'll go low histamine. I'll just fast. I'll eat, rice and chicken for the rest of my life. And it's like, and then you wonder why you're so nutrient depleted. And we're seeing zinc and copper issues, hair loss, right? We're seeing skin issues. We're seeing all of these things. And then on top of all of this, not to mention the GLP-1 craze that nobody's telling. I was just talking to another provider actually the other day on a GLP-1. I'm like, are you supporting with digestive enzymes? Do you have adequate sodium in? Do you have bile supports in place? Like, you have to be supporting your microbiome because you're putting in something exogenously that your body's supposed to produce. Mm-hmm. We're all deficient in it apparently these days, which I don't believe. That again goes back to a microbiome imbalance with loss of Akkermansia, some of these keystone species that are signalers. So you just have to remember that everything you do has a cost. So if you go on this very restrictive diet long-term and you don't bring back diet diversity, you're going to see dysfunction and you're going to see depletions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people, if they don't have gut symptoms like bloating, stomach pain, things like that, they assume there's no gut issues. Oh, I don't need to work on my gut. I don't have any symptoms of my gut. I cannot count the number of times I have had people tell me that, and we run a GI map, and they are disasters. Mm-hmm. There are so many inflammatory bacteria. They have high levels of bacteria, but their secretory IgA, their immune system of their gut is super low. And in those cases, their gut is exhausted, their immune system's exhausted, and in turn, it's allowing for this large overgrowth of bacteria that create these inflammatory release lipopolysaccharides. And that is what gets through the leaky gut into circulation and crosses the blood-brain barrier and causes the brain fog. It causes the fatigue. It causes these problems. And so we need to understand that you not having gut symptoms does not mean, and I hope I don't end up in this camp because I'm going to run a GI map. I have no gut symptoms. I have good bowel movements. I don't have bloating unless I really eat like a ton of gluten, a ton of dairy. I don't have any stomach pain, anything like that. I tolerate pretty much most foods. I'm running a GI map because I haven't ran one in a really long time and kind of curious to see. And I don't want to see what I hope I...
Well, there was a moment there you were like, oh, this feels like it did when I had Giardia. And, even for me coming back from Cabo, I posted about taking ivermectin. Mm-hmm. I do a round of ivermectin 2 to 3 times a year. Yep. And the way that I say this to people is if you deworm your dogs, I hope you do, right? But even though maybe you don't have a dog, but we traditionally deworm dogs, we should be deworming ourselves because we are around parasites all the time. Kids are carriers, food carriers, the environment outside. You pick up your shoes, they're on your hands, they're on your fingernail. Like, you don't believe me? Read the book, What Came to Dinner, and you're going to want to be on ivermectin for every day of your life. So, and then when we travel internationally, in which we went to Habibi 3 times, this amazing restaurant at the all-inclusive resort we were at, Becca and Sonia were there with us Sunday night, and we were like, oh my gosh, it was so good with the Wagyu. They give you the hot stone. You get to make that yourself. But then like the sushi, I typically travel with ivermectin, but I didn't get it in time, and I had already packed up our other supply that we had here. So I'm doing it now that we get home, and it's like 5 days on, 5 days off can be a good regimen. A couple rounds of that. You can do it. Typically, if I have a client that's really symptomatic, they're doing a 45, 60 day protocol. Some people, in terms of like cancer prevention, you're doing it with menbenazole. But anyways, I think that it's really important to check your microbiome because you're, again, just wanting to optimize health. And when you optimize your health, that supports your brain health, right? And cognition. And so a couple of other things when we're thinking about brain health here is going to be mitochondria. Mitochondria is so important because your brain is extremely dependent upon that proper function. So if your mitochondria is struggling, your energy production within the cells and your ATP drops and your brain again feels slow. So what are common drivers of that? And why would our mitochondria be struggling? Well, you can have things like reactive oxidative species, oxidative stress. So this like internal rusting in the body where you're, again, not clearing things out. You're in this state of sugar burning constantly. You're not getting into fat burning. That's where autophagy happens. That's where cell turnover, cleanup, all the debris happens. Take the garbage out. This has also happened because of nutrient depletions. A great one we can associate is the overuse of statins depleting CoQ10. That's important for mitochondrial function. We also can look at other things that maybe people aren't getting in their diet because they don't eat high quality color rich foods. So antioxidants, right? Polyphenols, things that give us a lot of these nutrients we need to combat inflammation. And this is why I love the I-66 from Oliveda, because I get it, a couple shots of that a day, feel great. We have other deficiencies because we're on birth control, we're on NSAIDs, we're on proton pump inhibitors, acid reducers, you name it. I mean, the average person above the age of 45 is on 5 prescriptions, right? And then you counter all of that, or compile all that, I should say, with toxin exposure. You're drinking poor quality water filled with fluoride and chlorine and all of these things. You're putting cheap products on your hair, your skin, your perfume, right? All these endocrine disruptors, these forever chemicals, all the stuff that just burdens the body. And that all leads to cellular dysfunction, chronic inflammation. And then you wonder why your brain doesn't function optimally and you can't lose weight. And you're looking watery, cottage cheese-like legs. This is because of poor detoxification and poor mitochondrial dysfunction. So all of that said, we've got a couple more things here that we want to just cover real quick so that you can go through and understand, where do I start? Where do I begin? Right?
Yeah. This is more like the standard foundational pieces you got to look at, right? What we just talked about, I would say, are things that people don't think about. They're a little bit more complex. They're a little bit more in-depth in terms of root cause analysis of brain fog and energy issues. But electrolytes and hydration, like huge, even mild dehydration can impair cognitive function. And so 1% to 2% dehydration, that is all you need to impair attention, memory, and mood. So if you're having headaches randomly, if you're having fatigue, dizziness, brain fog in the afternoon, do not reach for coffee, reach for electrolytes. Like, I take in 3 to 4 packets of LMNT a day. I'm on a GLP, so I think about that. And I'm also active and I'm walking and I have a lot that I ask of my body. And so I find that that seems to be a good fit for me. Not everyone is going to need that, but that seems to be what works. Hormone imbalances, we have to evaluate thyroid, right? Testosterone, cortisol, all of these things will play a role. Are they root cause? I wouldn't say so. I would say that they are usually a byproduct of what's going on. The thyroid has to compensate for the stress on the body over time. And so it will start to lose that compensation ability, and you probably will see it start to decline. So am I saying don't support the thyroid? No, but the thyroid's probably not the main reason that you have low energy. It's probably been trying to keep up with what you are putting on your body, or what internal, external factors are affecting the body, and it will in turn start to deteriorate in terms of its ability. So maybe you do need to support it, but probably not a root cause thing. Can all of these things help? Can thyroid support help? Can testosterone help? Can estrogen progesterone balance help? Absolutely. They are probably not the main thing though. Then labs. So we look at, like we talked earlier, blood sugar stability. I'm going to be looking at fasting insulin, fasting glucose, and A1C. I'm going to be looking at iron, ferritin, iron, what is going on in terms of the ability of the body to support blood flow. Because if you have really low ferritin, if you have really low iron, we know that you're not getting great circulation. And so you're not going to have the ability to transfer nutrients to the brain. You're not going to have the ability to transfer things to the hair follicles, losing hair. All of these things that we see come with stress typically are affected by blood flow. And so I want to know what that looks like, because then we can start looking at, okay, root issues of why ferritin low, why iron's low, right? Are there absorption issues? Again, we're going back to the gut. We're going back to inflammation. We're going back to all these more root cause issues, but they can help, right? You know what to support. Gut testing, ad nauseum. We have talked about this already in terms of how the gut can affect brain energy, can affect mood, can affect all of these pieces. And then nutrient markers can help too, like what is vitamin D? What is B12? What is magnesium? All of those pieces will give us further insight into maybe where to strategically support, but again, they're not going to be root cause issues. And then little tactical things that I find are, I don't want to say quick fixes, but definitely like can make a big impact quick, aren't going to be a total solution, but can support while you support the other pieces that need to be fixed. I think creatine is huge. Brain uses creatine phosphocreatine system to rapidly regenerate ATP, which can improve cognitive performance, can improve stress under fatigue. If I am sleep deprived, you better believe I'm bringing in creatine. So creatine can be very helpful for energy and brain health. If you struggle with creatine digestively, Omnidium, the company Omnidium, has a specific creatine formulation that is actually from Germany. is a lot better for people with more sensitive guts to creatine or bloating or water retention. So check them out. Love them. We have a code with them. Fit Mom. Love their creatine. And then amino acids, precursors for neurotransmitters. Low protein intake can impair neurotransmitter production and mental clarity. So if you are under eating, if you are not absorbing or have levels of amino acids in the body, look at your total protein, look at your globulin and albumin, look at your creatinine, look at your bun levels. If those are low, you're probably not getting adequate amino acid levels. So I love like a Kion, right? Yeah, Kion or Perfect Aminos brand. Love those. Electrolytes, again. And then things like methylene blue can be helpful. 15 to 30 milligrams a day for a couple days at a time or during the week. You don't want to take it daily at high doses. That is also not great. But that can also be really helpful because it's been shown to improve mitochondrial electron transport efficiency and cellular respiration. So going to help with oxygen flow, going to help with blood flow to the brain. And then I would say probably CMAX is probably my other big one. Nasal in particular helps a lot with neural inflammation, is definitely more of like a quick hit for energy and focus, and can overall help with levels of inflammation specifically in the brain. So those are probably the top things, but we don't want to ignore the foundations. Like if you're not sleeping, guys, if you are not eating adequately, do not even start going towards peptides. They need substrates to work. They need a foundation to work within, and they will only be able to work as well as the environment they go into. So really, really focus on the main things, daily movement. Like if you're sedentary all day, who thinks they're going to have energy if you are sitting behind a desk all day? Yeah. Your body was not meant to do that. Like when I'm starting to get tired during my day, if I can, I get up on my walking pad.
Yeah.
Because I know it'll immediately bring blood flow back. It'll help me get my little pep in my step again for the day. It'll help me be more productive. I'm actually more productive on my walking pad than I am sitting. Typically.
Yeah, I mean, even when you are walking and reading and studying, like there's research to show that you're obtaining and remembering things more efficiently. I would also say if this is something that you're struggling with, like post-viral, and again, from, maybe a sickness or a stomach bug or whatever, really thinking about ALA and NAC and some of those things. But I want to correct myself because I said earlier, 1715, the psychobiotic strain is Bifidobacterium longum 1714. So you can look for a probiotic that contains that strain. That one is the one that has been shown to improve cognitive function, specifically memory, and reduce stress in both the preclinical and human trials. And actually, when we're looking at things like IBS or irritable bowel syndrome and all of the anxiety and the depression that we have, this is going to be the one that can help the most. And we know that so many people have this IBS diagnosis, which that is what it is. Different topic for a different day. We have a lot of podcasts on that, but this can, really support that cognition. It can support the gut microbiome, leaky gut, the integrity of the microbiome, and it can support sleep quality as well. So thinking about how you can just better help yourself and then bring in pre and probiotic rich foods, because again, your microbiome is always changing. Your mucosal lining is always changing. And so you want to be supporting some of those things. Pectin, apple pectin, that could be as easy as making like stewed apple pectins as apple sauce, leave the skin on, or eating the skin of certain fruits. And all of that can be very, very helpful. So just remember that if this is something that you are struggling with, there's always a reason. It's not just aging. It's not just a season of life, that is never ending and you never get out of this and just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Go back to the foundations, check your blood sugar, do some labs, work with somebody that can help guide you in the right direction, because it doesn't get better and improve on its own. You got to help your body out a little bit, and that all starts with the foundations.